we got a client we're working with recently. It's a small dog, I believe, like a Chihuahua mix Bridget's working with. And the client is a little bit older, and, she's living in, I think, like an apartment or a condo or something like that. And the dog is basically putting her in a position where she's going to get kicked out of the apartment, right?
Oh.
Just barking constantly when she leaves the house, really reactive, this, that, right? So Bridget's taking the dog through the training program. She's working through things. They started the e-collar training with the dog. And when they started the e-collar training, the lady's like, and she said this in not a bad way, right? Like, it wasn't like she was like trying to control the program or anything. She's like, is there any way we could do this without using the e-collar, right? In her mind, and Bridget was like, why? She's like, I feel like I'm being mean to the dog if I use one, right? Or this or that, right?
Yeah.
So understandably, this owner is already a little soft, we could say, right?
Yeah.
She's soft to the idea of disciplining the dog, right? Now, are there issues that she's having outside of the dog barking incessantly when she leaves the house? Like, yeah, there's miscellaneous things here and there, right? So we tried to meet the owner halfway with this. Bridget asked me, she's like, what should I do about this situation, right? Do I have to use the e-collar, right? Is there a way that I could help this owner? Because she feels bad for the lady. Very nice lady, right? Doesn't really want to use the e-collar. She just wants to not get kicked out of her fucking apartment with her dog.
Yeah, 100%.
And I said, you know what? Definitely, we can meet this owner halfway. Because if I say, here's the problem. If I say, no, you have to use the e-collar, right? We've got to use the e-collar for your recalls and for your leash walking and for your sits and for your this and for your that. And I basically go from this lady's already hesitant to use the e-collar to we have to use it for everything because that's what people say we should do.
Yeah.
Right? That's what trainers say we should do as far as that's how we should enforce commands and this and that. That's going to put this lady in a position where she's going to want to really heavily fall back on those old soft ways and not use it long term.
Yeah.
Right? And then her progress is going to deteriorate over time, right? Additionally, we started talking about it. And in her mind, she needed to be less soft, obviously, but the idea of her being the one that's doing it, that's correcting the dog, right, makes her feel bad. And yes, these are emotional hurdles that we want to help the owner work through. But again, I always tell everybody, I tell trainers, I tell everybody, be critical of your work and really ask yourself the question, right? That question would be so easy to say, yes, you have to use the e-collar, right? But we asked ourselves, we're like, do we? Is there a way we could solve this problem without using the e-collar to help this lady feel more comfortable with the process and still make sure we could provide a high enough degree of training to work through the goals, right? And I said, you know what? I think there is, right? Now, what's one thing that we could do right off the rip, right? We could stop the barking to make sure that she doesn't get kicked out of the apartment. And what's one thing that we could do that doesn't involve using the actual e-collar and doesn't involve the lady actually being the one that's correcting the dog for stuff? We can get a fucking bark collar. And we could just put a bark collar on the dog when she leaves the house.
Yeah.
And because the bark collar is only happening for the one thing this lady really, really cares about, which is the dog barking. And she knows, I really don't want to have to correct this dog, but this has to stop.
Yeah.
Right? That is the pain point. That is the single thing she hired us for. And we're positioning ourselves where we could use the bark collar and have it be automatic so she doesn't have to be the one that's actually going in and correcting the dog.
Yeah.
That is going to help this lady be confident that she could help this dog. She could work past this issue. She could feel confident in knowing she's not going to get kicked out of her apartment.
Yeah.
And furthermore, we educate her on, because a bark collar is 100% consistent of correcting the dog every time they bark, after one day of using it, just putting the bark collar on the dog alone will stop the dog from barking because they know anytime they've ever done it, they've gotten corrected for it, which actually in some cases is more beneficial than the e-collar.
Yeah.
Right? And then I asked Bridget, or I think actually we were in our trainers meeting, I think Michelle asked Bridget actually. She's like, do you think you could help this lady with all the rest of her training without the e-collar? She's like, yeah, I think I can. It's a Chihuahua.
Yeah.
Right? Like, come on. I mean, like, it's like Bridget's the Chihuahua whisperer, first of all.
Tiny
right?
dog.
And training tiny dogs. And second off, right, like the dog doesn't have major issues outside of that, right? It needs some structure, it needs some rules and stuff like that, but we don't need the e-collar in order to provide that. Now, listen, I caveat all of this with we can't allow clients to control everything we do, obviously, but what is our goal in the training process when people hire us for training? It's to help them solve the problem they hired us for, right? That solution solves the problem that they're hiring us for. And I'm not needing to bend over backwards in order to solve that problem. I'm not doing something that's going to be the most effective option because the client is saying they don't want to do it. I'm doing something that is going to be one of the easiest methods in order to solve that problem and catering to the soft mentality and helping the owner to be able to understand how this is going to help them and help them be firmer in the area where they need to be firm.